Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm coming at you guys with another pros and cons video, and this one is going to be the pros and the cons of a septum piercing. A ton of you wanted to see a video on this, so I thought it would be a kind of good idea to do just because so many people requested it. And just a little bit of background on my septum piercing personally. I've had mine pierced for almost 2 years now. This July I think will be 2 years since I had it done. I get a lot of questions on jewelry, sizing, things like that. So the gauge of my septum piercing is a 16 gauge, you know, nothing too dramatic. It's pretty standard for a septum piercing, between like a 16 and a 14. And then people who want to stretch them, they can stretch them to any size that they want. This is just the jewelry that I have in it. It's just a little kind of curved barbell, horseshoe, whatever you want to call it. And I get a lot of questions as to where I purchased this jewelry. This was actually bought at Walmart for like 10 bucks. It came in like a pack of 4, I think. And yeah, it was really difficult to change just because the balls are so tiny on it. We're just gonna go ahead and start with the pros of having a septum piercing. The first one that I have listed is that it is very easily hidden. You really are the only person that needs to know about it because you can hide it so easily. As you can see, I have mine flipped down right now, and if you did want to hide it, you could just easily flip it up into your nose and no one would even know that it's there. Another pro that I have listed down for the septum piercing is that there is no visible scar tissue. Since the septum piercing is pierced up into your nose, if you ever were to, you know, want to remove it in the future, then you wouldn't have to worry about any sort of scarring like a lip piercing, like I do have a scar from my lip piercing. Whereas with my septum piercing, you would never ever know if I had or hadn't had it pierced because all of the scar tissue and all of the scarring is up inside your nose. The next pro that I have listed down, and this one is kind of like a 50-50 because it really kind of all depends on the person, but I do have down that the septum piercing is virtually painless when it is done correctly. If you are someone who, you know, goes to a piercer and they pierce it directly through the sweet spot, which is the thin piece of skin up into your nose between the bone and the cartilage, that is where it is supposed to go. When that is pierced correctly and done correctly, the piercing is virtually painless, but then again, everyone handles pain differently. A lot of people have theirs done you know, in the right spot, and they said it hurts like hell. Another one that I have listed down is even if you have a deviated septum of any sort, you can more than likely always get your septum pierced. And then the last pro that I have before we move on to the cons of the septum piercing is that I would recommend this piercing to literally everybody. The septum piercing, I feel like, is a good piercing to get if you're someone who, you know, wants to experiment with piercings but you don't want to go too dramatic and you don't want to be left with any sort of scarring. The septum piercing is a good one for you because you can definitely kind of see what your face would look like with the piercing. You can kind of get a feel for, you know, how piercings work, and you don't have to worry about any sort of after effects of having it in case you do decide to take it out. Now moving on to the cons of having a septum piercing. I have quite a few of these, and a lot of these are from my own very personal experience. The first one is, if it is pierced wrong, it can be very painful and the healing process can be extremely annoying and very painful. I got my septum pierced really low down in this bottom cartilage. You can kind of see where it was pierced. Not in my sweet spot at all. Mine was pierced just like a few millimeters below where it was supposed to be pierced, so getting it done was extremely painful. It definitely was one of my most painful piercings, and the healing process was brutal. My whole underside of my, whoa hair, what are you doing? This whole underside of my nose right here was extremely sensitive for a good few months. I couldn't do this, you know, I couldn't move my nose around. It was just very sensitive, and it took a very long time to heal. It is 100% healed now, but just having it pierced wrong made the healing process just like 10 times worse. I'm going to shave my head. The next con that I have listed for having a septum piercing is that blowing your nose can be very difficult, especially if you have a cold and your septum piercing is in the way and you're trying to blow your nose and you're trying to relieve yourself, but you can't because there's a huge ring hanging down from your nose. That causes a lot of, you know, irritation. So it's very, very hard to blow your nose with one. You kind of have to just maneuver around the piercing, making sure you don't have any like, you know, boogers or anything stuck to it, because it does happen, especially when you have it flipped up all day and you flip it down and you're like, oh hey, there's a booger there. And the next con that I have listed is you're going to get a lot of comments about how you look like a bull or you look like a cow because you have a ring hanging from your nose. Like why, I hate them, but you're going to get them quite often because that's just what a lot of people like to associate, is that you look like a bull when you have your septum piercing. So just be prepared for those comments, and also be prepared to just ignore them because they're just flat out stupid and wrong. And then the next con that I have for having a septum piercing is that it can be kind of difficult to change because of the location, especially if you are someone who is pierced very, very high and your sweet spot's very high. You kind of have to get all the way up in there to change it. So my recommendation for if you're having an issue changing yours is to go see a piercer, because they will be able to see and have a lot more experience at changing them than you probably do. So it's just easier to go to someone who knows what they're doing rather than you doing it, accidentally messing up and having the piercing completely closed and then having just to do the whole process over again. So those are all the pros and the cons that I have for a septum piercing. Let me know if you guys have any pros or cons to add. Make sure you put them down in the comments. Make sure you give this video a huge thumbs up, and don't forget to go down and subscribe to my channel as well. I would greatly appreciate it. But until then, I will see you guys very soon in my next video. I love you guys. Bye!